Mic check 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
This budget hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication now reconvenes discussions of the fiscal year 2018 executive budget request. This morning, we are meeting with the Department of Administration. I want to preface this hearing, as I have all of the other budget hearings, with the uncertainty the government of Guam faces with regards to potential negative impacts to general fund revenue collections and economic activity as a result of the numerous factors such as CH-2 visa denials, potential federal tax reform, and cuts that may erode GovGuam's revenue base, caps on Section 30 revenues to be collected, etc. With these issues at the top of our mind, the Guam Legislature has the daunting task of ensuring that we provide funding for public service the people of Guam want and need. As an overview, the executive budget request submitted by the Governor through the Bureau of Budget Management and Research provides for $12.5 million for the operations of the Department of Administration, with an $888,000 increase above the FY authorized level of $11.6 million. This is a 7.63 increase as compared to the FY 2017 authorized level. I understand that the Department of Administration administers certain appropriations outside the operations, such as the Residential Treatment Fund, the GovGuam audited financial statements, public street lights, cost of living allowances, the Tejan lease, and the GovGuam Claims Fund, to name a few. This budget hearing will focus solely on appropriations to the Department of Administration for its operation. With one caveat, however, I did receive a note from a vendor on residential treatment, so I may ask a question on residential treatment. I would like to thank the Department of Administration for being present today, and inasmuch as the Sergeant at Arms has already sworn you in, Mr. Arioli, you're welcome to make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to be here, honorable senators, to present our FY 2018 budget to the committee and to discuss our request overall for the department. If I may, I'd like to read my prepared statement. Honorable Chairman, members of the committee, and all honorable senators, as I said earlier, I'm pleased to appear before you today to discuss the 2018 budget request for the Department of Administration. Our Director, Christine Belletto, sends her apologies for not attending today's budget hearing as she is currently off island. So I speak today on behalf of the Department of Administration in my capacity as the Acting Director. The departments and offices within the executive branch are primarily focused on providing core services to the people of Guam. The Department of Administration oversees the financial management, procurement, information technology, and human resources of all the line agencies that function and serve our island. These are important responsibilities that our department is tasked with, playing a pivotal role in the lives of our people and of our government. Our Human Resources Division is responsible for administering an effective and efficient personnel management program in the areas of recruitment, test development and validation, classification, and compensation. This division also has responsibility for employee records and employee management relations, the Public Employee Management Relations Act, equal employment opportunity, a drug-free workplace, and training and benefits assistance. Our HR division also provides guidance to non-autonomous agencies to ensure that employees and management comply with applicable human resources related mandates. The Office of Technology, OTEC, is tasked to ensure that our government agencies have the technologies they need at their fingertips in a prompt and timely fashion that enables them to provide exceptional, top quality, reliable services to the people of Guam. It is their responsibility to create and maintain a robust, highly reliable, and secure technical infrastructure providing a strong backbone that can promote efficiencies and accuracies in our government services. The General Services Agency, that we know as GSA, administers a centralized procurement program for GovGuam departments and agencies, whether it be providing support and or guidance to procure supplies, materials, or equipment and services. GSA continues to review the procurement rules and regulations and updates and recommends any new regulations as needed. GSA periodically provides training to other departments and agencies to better understand the procurement process that in turn will assist in procuring their needs as expeditiously and accurately as possible. The Division of Accounts ensures the effective administration, processing, and recording of all revenues and expenditures while providing courteous and convenient services to the taxpaying public. They perform mandated reporting for various funds and programs as directed by local and federal statute. Responsibilities under this division focus on appropriations, general ledger, revenue, accounts payable, federal and fixed assets, payroll, and the Treasurer of Guam. We have a team of dedicated and experienced public servants. During my short time here to date, I see firsthand individuals who work tirelessly to fulfill their responsibilities. For that, I want to thank and commend the hardworking employees at the Department of Administration. They have worked diligently to provide services to our fellow GovGuam employees and to the people of Guam. Honorable Chairman and members of this committee, I thank you for your time and consideration of our FY 2018 budget. We remain ready and available to answer any questions. If I may introduce our team, okay? Starting with my left, I have Mr. Goody Rosario, acting Kathy Kakigi just called in. She's extremely sick, so Goody Rosario will fill in for her. We have Claudia Alfaji heading the GSA, Shane Gata and Mike Snip from our Human Resources Division. To my right, I have Florence Salas. She's our ASO, and Frank Lujan and Joey Manabusan from OTEC.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your statement that you provided in listing HR at the top of all the divisions that you have within your department. Over the last month, I'd imagine that the two of you have been falling down or biting your tongue almost every other day because we've been having budget hearings where the finger has been pointed at your department and that division for its inability to timely process personnel actions. The Department of Corrections was very complimentary about you moving their people through, but GPD and the fire both complained about the fact that it's taken almost over 2 years to get the use of their vacancy pool money because they can't move things through. But I look at the personnel costs, and you're asking to fund 11 vacancies, and I don't see one request for HR.
Mr. Chairman, we have, I believe there are how many, 3 positions that are in process of being filled with HR as we speak today. A big issue also with HR, and I know Shane could speak to that, is we just have an inordinate amount of applications that have come in, especially with the Guam Fire Department. I believe the number is like 1,200 that we're reviewing just for Guam Fire alone. Is that right, Shane? For Guam Fire alone, we've got over 1,200 applications that we're reviewing. So we have to review it, we have to rate it, we have to test them. So that's, yeah, it's...
I know, and I understand. And the thing is that you're the Department of Administration. I would think that you have connections to Adelup, though you're into mooning. But how long have your 3 positions been waiting to be filled and approved by Adelup?
I don't think the holdup is there, Mr. Speaker, as much as I know we had some individuals apply and to fill the positions that we're looking for. It was just difficult to fill. I think we had to turn down 2, if not 3 positions, and then start all over again. Shane, if Shane, you want to talk to that?
So we've basically been trying to fill and get some vacancies. All we've been able to do so far is try to bring some of our current employees up based on the funding levels that we have. So I've been told that to bring them up to do the more complex work that's involved with the recruitments. And I'm glad that you did bring up, I did speak to the police chief and the fire chief prior to the hearings and assured them that we are moving forward. There's 2 issues with the public safety, I guess, is one, we had to deal with their promotional cycles first, the in-house cycles. We did them for GPD, fire departments in progress. We also moved on customs. We also moved on DYA and DOC. We tried to get them on the front end with Correction Officer 1. So throughout the year, we've done an unprecedented amount of promotions. We've never actually done that many in 1 year for that many different departments. And so we're getting towards the tail end of giving them their list to make the promotion so that they can bring people up in the career ladder to open up the opportunities below. And so once we're complete with that, we're going to move into their recruits. That's basically what's happening.
But who made the decision that the promotions were first? The fact that they're not able to get their vacancies filled with new people, their vacancy pool and their new recruits, have both of them running up 2 million, 3 million, 4 million by GFT in overtime. I mean, this is a real chicken and the egg thing. I mean, which comes first? And it would seem to me that though I may have harassed your division in the past about the fact that you're overpaid, or under the CWA, it needs to be filled, because otherwise we can't fill the GPD recruits. GPD runs up overtime. GFD runs up overtime. I can't remember the other agency that was just here last week, again complained about not being able to move their things through. Then I get to your budget, Mr. Ariola, and I look, and you're funding 11 positions. You have HR at the top of your list, recognizing how important it is in the department, but there isn't one position being filled or a new positions being added in that department. You asked for 3 new people in the director's office. You asked for a office aide and a program coordinator 3. What are they going to do and function? I mean, I harassed Christine last year. Why does the Department of Administration need a PIO officer? They need 6 people. Take those 3 positions, give it to him.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. We will do everything we can, and the truth be told, that has been my priority ever since arriving there at Department of Administration. You spoke about that a little. That was the word they gave me, is to get on these applications and get them out as soon as possible. We are doing everything we can, and if that's the case, then we will.
But what's taking so long in filling the 3 positions in their division? I attended all the graduations for the last 5 years, and except for criminal justice, HR is the biggest class that graduates at the university.
I don't see.
And so I'm trying to figure out why we can't get the people. How long have those 3? Where is the holdup with the 3 positions that are funded already in their division?
As I said, I believe,
Where's it at?
Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are ready to be picked up as we speak. The holdup was in the first batch that came through, as I understand, is none of them actually qualified. We can't just take a graduate from human resources and bring them on board because they don't have any experience. And the positions we're looking for are 2 personnel specialists, 2, 3 of them actually, personnel specialists 2.
No,
So we need
I
some
understand, but
experience.
under the CWA, they make a considerable amount of money in HR. That's been my complaint the entire time with the Hay study, is that HR managed to get themselves paid more. When I was at the court, I had a fit because my HR people were making more than my attorneys. But that's the way they know how to fill out the forms, and they were able to work it out, so it's great. So I know that that their salaries aren't low. Something has to be done to expedite the hiring of the 3, and if need be, give up these additional positions that you're asking for in the director's office.
Understand.
Unless you can explain why you need a program coordinator 3 in the director's office and an office aide, and have the money go there for a 4th or a 5th person.
I understand.
I'm still waiting for Senator Tommy, but I guess I'll ask the question because the same thing again with OTEC. I know last year Senator Morrison was quite critical about the fact that very little money is being provided for additional personnel for them and what's going to be happening to them. And if last year, and I know Christina sent me letters that she can't answer the questions that were, the reports that we're demanding out of a division of accounts because supposedly the system that you guys have is unable to run at Department of Administration, though I've received word from the vendor saying that they offered the program to Department of Administration, and Department of Administration didn't want it.
That I'll have Frank speak to. I'm not aware of that, Mr. Chairman. But in terms of our current system, yeah, that is correct. Even when I came on board, and I was surprised to see the same system that I was using back in the 80s. And I know we are we're trying to transition to a new system, and I can let Frank speak to that.
Mr. Speaker, I guess just point of clarification. I want to understand the question regarding the systems, of what it can do and what it can't do. In terms of the business process, certainly the software is capable. Most of the gaps that I've seen really is related to process as opposed to whether we have the technology in place or not. But if you kind of clarify what the question is, I can elaborate.
I had asked about, we have been requesting I think it was a weekly report from Department of Administration, and we were told that couldn't be produced, that if we wanted it produced, it would require doubling the staff at the accounting division of accounts, and I asked, couldn't it be done by computer? And I was told at one of the hearings by Christine that no, because that there's no program for that. And within hours of the hearing, I had two people down here who were trying to get copies of the hearing tape because they had heard that statement and the fact that it was untrue, that the vendor had actually offered DOA the program to be able to do the weekly, or I think it was a daily account, a more up-to-date account, and it was rejected. And so what I'm trying to get to is when we gave birth to OTEC, it was to bring us into the 21st century. And I know Senator Morrison, and as I was joking to Senator Castro, yes, Senator Morrison was the surrogate father of that child, and I was the midwife, and we want to see this child thrive, but we're not giving it the people or the attention that it needs. I mean, yes, I see that this $2.2 million in contracts, which you're asking for, and maybe is it all being addressed by all of these additional contracts that you have in your budget, the 2.2? Is that how we're getting into the 21st century, by contracting out a lot of this work?
Well, a lot of the works were actually contracts that were actually in place way before my time. With respect to the functionality and your request, I will need to differ and get back actually with the vendor, because I'm not aware that they did have the capability, nor am I aware that they had that offering. Otherwise, I'm not one for turning it down if they're able to get it move forward with us. I do have my team quite engaged in fleshing out the details of the problems that we're having with collections and the automation that's in place. But you know, and I have issued some quarterly reports to you, Mr. Speaker, regarding that progress. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as I would like, because we just don't have all the resources we need, but we are making progress. I will certainly follow up with the vendor to understand what is it that he has to offer, and if there's a possibility of bridging that and providing that data that you're requesting.
Please. A lot of what you're asking for in contractual services of $2.2 million are maintenance support.
Yes.
Can you explain what this?
Sure. I actually have a presentation that I had put together. If it's actually my turn, I can go ahead and present that. Okay, this is just a short presentation of. I apologize for the eye test here, but hopefully I can address some of the issues or the items that are actually in our budget. We can go to the next slide. Okay, go ahead and go into the next slide. Hopefully this really represents the 36 department line agencies that we actually support. And there's actually an employee count there. If you can go to the next slide, please. About 2,933 as fiscal year FY16. We had 2,933 FTEs that we're supporting within the line agencies. Next slide. These are all the different coverage applications that we're covering right now with the 15 personnel that we have at OTEC. Next slide, please. So DPW, DLM, OTEC, these are all different efforts that we're actually moving forward on. Next slide. The bulk of many of our applications actually coming out of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. So and it has a wide range of everything from telemedicine to the food stamps. And these are all just acronyms that are related to the application. But as you can see, it's a pretty wide spectrum that we have responsibility for and coverage. Next slide, please. So here's the budget summary. Next slide. One more time, please. See if we can get up a little. So this.
Do you have a? Some of my younger members are actually quite computer savvy, and I know this one down here is having just frothing at the bit.
I apologize. I meant to have hard copies for this.
She wants to jump in. She's Miss Computer. Yeah, I guess I'll let her be the midwife for this agency with.
I can provide a hard copy of this. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties in presenting of creating the printouts.
Okay.
But,
can you just have somebody send it to one of the email addresses and it can be printed? Send it to bjcruz.com and somebody will print it right now so that my younger I can see it in my old age.
Actually, I apologize. This is actually a 32-meg presentation, so it's not easy for me to I had to reduce it to a PDF, but I will provide the hard copies to you. I apologize. Next slide, please. So our total budget that we're asking for this is, you can see this one, the 3.9 million. Next slide. And we'll go over into the personnel piece. Next, please. And of course, again, I apologize for the eye chart here. One more time. You can see this a little better. We have about 15 people that we're budgeting for a total of about $1.1 million. This is everywhere from the CTO down to we have computer operators and operator supervisors. Next slide, please. These are the vacancies that we have. The items in red are people that have left us, but we weren't able to be successful in getting funding for them during this particular budget call. But we were able to get at least these two vacancies funded to help us in bridging some of our gaps. So that's for a total of about 111,000 in vacancies. So that's two positions coming up for FY18. Next slide, please. So this is part of the question, the contractual 230. If you go to the next slide, this is the wide range of services that we have all the way across the board with covering everything from maintenance to applications. And basically, I put this slide, I organized this slide, so if you can go to the next one. It's a little bit better, but one more time. I brought this particular slide to just show you the increases that we had across the board. So if you can go to one more slide, please, and see if we can see a little bit better. All the items in red, the increases really signify different changes in prices, as well as problems with when our hardware comes off of warranty. We have to budget for the maintenance on it. So the additional increases you'll see in red. One of the newer applications that we actually launched this year was coverage for GSA and having a more modern online application. So there's maintenance in there for about I believe it's about 73,000 additional. So the increase was about $59,000 for that, for FY18. The financial transaction processing system, also better known as TPS, is actually the base core collection system. That also came off of maintenance or warranty, if you will, when it was rolled out the last few years. So this is the first year we're actually budgeting for maintenance. And for this particular thing under DOA, we have $96,000 that's allocated for the maintenance of that particular system. One of the highlights for this, one of the bigger increases, $149,000 actually, is for actual hardware maintenance for the servers that are in place with that's running our financial management system. That came off of warranty last year also. If you can go to the next slide. I highlighted this because this is one of the more significant pieces of our improvements in improving the bandwidth and the reliability of our network to all the 36 different agencies. So from FY17, we're going from requesting for $48,000 to about $132,000 for more dark fiber circuits that we're needing to bring that signal to our end users. Next slide, please. So the last piece here is the capital outlay, and if you can go to the next slide one more time, and a little bit more. We had a decrease, a little bit of a decrease. We're only asking for $195,000. We've scheduled upgrades for some of the virtual servers that we have in place, as well as replacement of switches. So this encompasses most of the different details of our budget. If you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, I think that's it. So right now I'm open to any questions you might have. But.
Okay. In your slide, I'll ask the personnel questions, and my three young techies will
Sure.
grill you on the finer details. In the budget request, they've only submitted for 2 new positions, a computer systems analyst 1 and a computer systems analyst 2. And you have 3 vacant positions up there. How long have those 3 vacancy positions been vacant?
They've been vacant, Joey, about 3 years. How long has it been vacant? This is the second year that it's gone into vacancy.
Why hasn't it been filled?
Well, that's actually a very good question.
You need to turn on your mic.
One position, the computer system analyst, is at HR right now, ready for release. So that one position is going to be filled. Why it's been empty over the last 3 years, I can't say, Mr. Speaker. But I know if I can speak in generalities, Frank is chair of the committee that's looking to change out our and come upon a new financial management system. Part of this budget represents that as well. What we're looking at, especially in terms of fiscal year 2019, that's probably when we're going to see a rather large increase for OTEC, because this current year, to include fiscal year 2018, he's still in the planning stage of getting the entire FMS system updated and upgraded. So my question to him when we did the budget, I said, do you need the funding now to do the upgrade? Do you need new personnel? Things of that nature. And so our decision was status quo, with the exception if we can get the 2 computer system analysts on board, we'll be okay for this present fiscal year. Like I mentioned, we're still in the planning stages of getting the new FMS system on board, and we can see in FY 2019 a rather sizable increase for OTEC.
So you'll be satisfied with the filling the 3 vacancies that you had on the board and us providing the funding for these additional 2?
At this point, with the current rules for the budget ceilings, I'm not quite prepared to say that I'm satisfied with it, because I did have a different kind of submission during the budget call, but because it's still going through its process with HR, with new position descriptions and just new alignments overall with IT, I'm not really prepared to speak to that in this particular form. I can speak to it in a different venue, if you'd like, to present the new reorganization of OTEC to address a lot of these different issues. But currently, with this particular budget, I'm just focused on meeting the budget ceiling objectives and whatever the financial objectives that we have in place with the fiscal team.
And then, again, going back to my priority,
Understand?
why would you want to put more people in the director's office when he's concerned about budget ceiling?
I understand.
Something the director's office obviously isn't concerned about. He's concerned about budget ceiling, but you're not. I'm looking at the 11 positions you want funded, and you want 2 new positions in the director's office. And I'm saying there's 2 divisions that need people more than you do. The one that's going to be able to get people hired so that he doesn't remain 3 short.
I understand, Mr. Speaker. As I stated, the computer system analyst will be filled. The 3 personnel specialists are in process to be filled. I expect those to be on board within the next 30 days. The computer system analyst certainly before the end of the fiscal year. It's not so much that we don't want to fill them. It's the applications coming in, whether these people qualify or not. These are specialized positions. And I understand the issue with the director's office. We don't have a secretary, the director and I. We do most, if not all, of our writing. The only one that does our communications is our PIO, who, as you know, is part of DOA, but we don't have a secretary. Our coordinator that we have. She handles administrative issues as well with other departments, and so that's the way the office functions. The office aide, he's the runner that goes to all the different departments and assists with the front office, answering phones. We're bare bones as well.
Okay. But it just, when I was dealing with GPD and the amount of overtime, there's 2 agencies, I just thought the savings that we could have used elsewhere if the recruits had been in place. I mean, it's circular, and it just...
I understand,
it just
Mr.
makes me
Speaker.
crazy.
We will push. We will do everything we can to get those individuals on board.
Okay.
We understand your point. Thank you.
So, Senator Nelson and then Senator Castro, I believe, have questions. And you have questions on Mr. Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Lujan.
Good morning.
I understand you had an opportunity to go on Cyber Shield, I think a year ago or 2 years back with the Guam National Guard. Was that you?
No, it's actually 2 people on my team,
Out of your
but
team,
actually
okay.
it was a very beneficial
Okay.
blue and red team exercise.
Okay, very good. I do have some questions, just to get into the
Sure.
nitty-gritty part of the details for your VMware systems.
Yes.
What agency are you going to implement that in? Is that for the whole Gov Guam? Or
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is every agency of Gov Guam will have VMware accessible to them.
That's correct. That's correct. VMware is part of the infrastructure to all of our servers.
Okay.
So it allows us to virtualize
Right.
a lot of the storage and the memory, and as well as the processing capacity of our servers.
And how far are you in this project?
As far as the project is fully
Complete?
implemented.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what it is that you're asking for is just a renewal of maintenance or something for the contractual
Part
service?
of it is maintenance, other parts are just general upgrades that are needed for servers because they're outdated.
Okay,
A
and
lot of our
that's-
servers are going off, or what's called end of life.
Yes. So you're doing the lifecycle management phase out.
Yes.
Your IBM Power 7, that supports your VMware systems? Is those,
No, it isn't. The IBM PowerWare, it's actually a power system that actually supports the fiscal management system.
okay, so those servers will be outfitted for FMS specifically?
That's correct.
Okay. So how many cores does this entail for the IBM Power 7?
I'm sorry?
How many cores for your IBM Power?
How many cores?
Yes. You know, sometimes there's 3 cores, 6 cores,
Well, for the Power 7, it's actually a
and
different...
the more you spend, the more cores you get, the more expensive
Yeah,
it will be.
it's a different architecture with the Power 7. It's actually an IBM Power I system, and
Oh, okay.
they operate with logical partitioning.
Okay, okay. Okay, so you're doing partitioning in these servers?
Yes.
Okay. And then I saw that, you know, in your contractual and even in your organizational chart, I saw a list of positions. How much emphasis are you putting in for information assurance?
For information assurance
Yes.
in terms of...
Well, so you're implementing VMware, right? Gov Guam wide, right?
Sure.
And so you need to have like information assurance practices, right? So the users need to understand what they can and cannot do on the network, right? So that you can protect your network. And so I'm just wondering, are you implementing information assurance procedures and policies so that you can protect your network? And then also the cybersecurity, how are you hardening your network to prevent hacking into your network?
Yeah, that's actually several questions, but...
Sure.
Well, with respect to, you know, information assurance and really information assurance is done at the application level.
So the
You know,
agencies will handle their own information assurance?
For the most part, they have their own policies that are in place. We control the access piece where we provision the end users and where we launch policies, for example, on what kinds of passwords and what kind of credentials that they need to access the systems. With respect to cybersecurity, we have several facets where we're protecting the environment and monitoring from appliances that are existing within the network. And we're also attached to a 24/7 security operations center under the Center for Internet Security. So we have daily 24/7 monitoring of any potential attacks or any intrusions within our network. We're able to see them.
Okay, so you don't have an information security officer inside. What you do is you contract it out?
No, we
Or-
don't.
You do?
We don't contract any of it out.
You do have an information security officer?
Well, we don't have the title per se. We have the functionality within my team. Within the 15 people, I task them to do what we can to protect the system. So one of the major problems we have with our current organizational structure is none of the position descriptions really aligned with what we really have to do to protect our systems. So if you look at the descriptions for a computer systems analyst 1 or 2 or any of the system programmers, there's no descriptions about how to protect the systems or to secure the systems. I do have new position descriptions that I've already submitted since October to HR that are in the process of being worked. I'm in the queue right now, and my colleagues at HR are working on it as we speak. So that's
So
part
you
of
have not filled that position yet? Is
those
that what I'm
positions
getting?
aren't filled, but the function, we're doing the function to
You're doing the
protect our...
function now.
Yes. So to answer your question, we have no CSO. If for any intents and purposes, Joey Manabusan and myself are co-CSOs. We're assuring the security piece for our networks.
Just you two? Amongst
Actually,
everything else that
I
you're
have a
doing.
team behind me.
Oh, okay. And then, okay, one more question for your, back to information assurance.
Sure.
Okay. This is very important for me because, you know, I mean, you need to protect the network, and I worked at DOE for some time, and it was very easy to get into their network, right? There was no security measures put in place for their ports or anything like that. And so, to understand this, you're providing VMware, so everyone in Gov Guam is going to access the internet through VMware application. Or is it specific programs that you're putting on VMware for access?
VMware provides a mechanism for us to create server environments for the different applications that we have out there, and it covers the whole array of the 36 line agency departments that we...
So you're using it for a database?
For database, for applications,
Okay.
application
But
programs.
not for login user-based purposes?
Not directly for
I see.
login. We're actually using Active Directory through Microsoft
Okay.
for the identity, credentialing, and access management.
Yes. But you don't have user application for VMware?
User applications for...
If I wanted to go online, I'd have to go on through a VM system.
Well, you would have to get
A profile made?
a VPN to attach
Yeah,
to the
for
server.
some-
Yes. You couldn't access it
Right.
from outside unless you had the credentials.
So as a teacher, if I wanted to go online, would I need a VMware account?
You would need a VMware account? No, you would...
I can just
we
go
would
online
provision.
directly?
No, you couldn't even access it. You have to get the accounts through us.
Okay.
And there's a lot of controls that we actually have in place with actually the division of accounts that helps us manage some of the security with the employees.
Okay, so that's very good to know because just 2 years ago when I put in my computer into one of your ports, I can easily access the internet. But now you've secured that route and you...
Yeah, as far as I know, you're not capable, nobody's capable unless you have the credentials. And we also have ways of tracking unauthorized access.
Okay.
And I get those alerts on a daily basis.
Okay, I'd like to hopefully in the future see a more concrete staffing pattern as far as your cybersecurity, your ISOC,
Sure.
and also your information
I do
assurance.
have a plan. As I said, I'm not prepared to present that during this budget hearing, but I'd be more than glad to share what that plan is. And it does cover security.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ariola, in many jurisdictions, the Chief Technology Officer position is a governor appointee and it's confirmed by the legislature, as it is here. But that role also operates independently. Can you tell me how much of DOA's budget in total is allocated for the Office of Technology?
Well, are we on? From a total of a $12 million budget, OTEC's at about 3.9, say 4. So 4 million, close to 4 million out of 12. And we handle all their administrative issues for OTEC. Are you speaking to should OTEC be a standalone agency? I leave that to I leave that to the policymakers. Yeah, there's already, it's kind of heading in that direction already. I believe there's a statute that kind of oversees and guides OTEC today, and that was just recently passed about, maybe 2013, 3-4 years ago. So
Right.
probably, it looks like we're probably heading in that direction.
Okay. Mr. Lujan, could you update us on the possible Department of Interior funds used for upgrades of the AS400 system?
The funds to upgrade?
Yeah, it's my understanding that there has been conversations with multiple agencies and representatives from the Department of Interior regarding updating the system,
Oh, yes. Well, it's actually the FMS system and not necessarily the AS400.
I see.
We've had some discussions with the DOI folks who are responsible for identifying funding, and my understanding, are you asking for an amount?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a potential amount and what the timeline might be.
Well, I think the potential amounts, I'm not actually prepared to go into detailed specifics on the amounts, but I know it's anywhere between 20 to 30 million that they're going to try to make available to us.
And what would be our contingency plan should the AS400 system have an issue, go down? If anything should happen to AS400 today, what would be our contingency plan?
Well, there are protections already in place. We have redundancy with respect to the data centers. In fact, we had that issue last year when we lost one of the processors at the DOA data center. The DRT data center took over, and because of the connectivity and the licensing that was in place, we were able to keep all the mission critical services up and running up until April. So it went down in January. We were able to restore and synchronize all the databases on the main system. It took us 4 months to do that. Yes.
Okay. A new item in your capital outlay lists a need for 10 units of communication switch replacements. Each of those are $9,000, so for a total of $90,000. Can you tell us a little bit more about communication switch replacements?
Well, the connectivity for anybody to access the system has to take place through network switches. And the infrastructure for our network switches have not been really upgraded probably for the last, I'd say, 10 years. So we have a lot of switches where we have bad ports, and basically, although it's meeting the demand and the requirements, they're slowly actually depleting. So this is part of a program to replace some of those switches that are out there.
Understood.
And as you can see, there's only 9 switches, but we have literally several hundred switches that are out there within the network.
Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to exploring further ways to strengthen our IT infrastructure, strengthen the Office of Technology, and Mr. Ariola, to your point, maybe possibly including revisiting the enabling statute of OTEC and whether maybe OTEC can or should operate like other agency heads and report directly to the governor as a standalone agency is definitely something that we're thinking about, and how that would impact the entire government of Guam. Just really quickly, Mr. Nata, I wanted to just ask, I agree with the speaker's assessment. Many of them, the agencies that have come before us, particularly our public safety agencies, have indicated their struggles with identifying or trying to reduce the number of, or the hours of overtime, and it's extremely costly to the government of Guam. Would DOA support line agencies maybe doing their own hiring and promoting if DOA continues to do QA and the processing? I mean, it's my understanding that some autonomous agencies operate that way, so I just wanted to ask if that's something that you would consider.
Would it be for, is your question referencing line agencies altogether or specific line agencies?
I think the most critical right now would be public safety agencies. So yeah, GPD cops could hire cops.
In
DOC could hire
my discussion
guards.
with some of the chiefs, I mean, they did ask that question, and we're open to any conversation they want to have, and it narrows down to, in the end, when we go through all of our administrative processes and procedures to onboard people, our application evaluations, our testing procedures and everything, 9 times out of 10, the biggest worry coming from applicants, whether they're current employees or people of the general public, is the integrity of what's going through it. And it's been raised the question as far as whether or not it can be maintained at the departmental level. I don't know, because I don't operate in the departments, but I assume that that's the reason why the merit system was centralized at DOA. And you're correct, a lot of autonomous agencies do handle their own, and of course they have their governing boards that they report to, which govern them and kind of tell them how to do things. So, and they have their own rules and regs, which they kind of mirror off of DOA's and tweak to fit their needs of their agencies. But could it work? I wouldn't be able to say, because I wouldn't be able to attest for the expertise within each department. Some departments are stronger in HR than others, as in accounting and procurement and IT. but it really depends on, I guess, the leadership of the department and the capabilities of the staff within that department. As far as decentralizing it, there is a bulk of institutional knowledge and historical references at DOA that put it there. And you know, we do understand that there are a lot of processes to go through. We do try to work with the chiefs. We're in constant communication with them. You know, they're always asking for updates, and we're as honest with them as we can and say, you know, we just got to make it go through the process. Complaints do arise through the process, and we have to actually sit down and vet that out with those applicants to make sure that they have a full understanding of what they actually just went through. Because a lot of times they come through, they turn in an app, and they ask, poof, where did it go? What happened to it? How come I got a letter saying I was qualified or not qualified? And so it does take time, especially when they come to our office, to sit down with them and run them through it individually. Sometimes our staff will spend anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour with one applicant, especially the seasoned employees who apply for positions and have numerous qualifications, certifications, and everything, and they're wondering, how could I have been here for 25 years? And, you know, it looks this way, and we walk through them with it, and, you know, there's a lot of different things that can come up throughout the process. So, you know, we do try to push it. As far as how successful that would be, as far as fanning it out, I really couldn't tell at this point.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that you and your team continue to do to make sure that we fill in these much-needed positions and try to close these gaps. So, yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm just, you know, trying to think outside the box and see what else we might be able to do to give you some support. I have a couple of other questions, but I'll hold it so that my other colleagues can answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Masi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple questions. One is on the OT site, the central website that was supposed to be put up for public hearing announcements. I haven't seen it. When do you expect that to be functioning? I've seen it on the agencies, like Department of Land Management now has their notices put up, but so there's progress, but there's supposed to be a central website, isn't there?
Yes, I am aware of that, and we're trying to get it up as quickly as possible. You know, in the past, it was one of these things that was actually unfunded, and to centralize it actually is more complex than it looks. I am in conversation and in development with a web development vendor to drive that forward, and I'm hopeful we can actually launch that before the end of the fiscal year.
All right. And there are a couple positions in your staffing pattern that are unclassified, and can you just explain why that is? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, other than my position that's unclassified, there is one position. It's the systems and
The ones I'm
programming.
looking at are, one's an analyst supervisor, and one is the systems and programming administrator.
Okay.
So these are the management, yeah?
Yeah, those actually were in place way before I came on board, and they're well-established positions. One of the administrators actually created a vacancy, and we just hired into it. He had passed away, and we still needed that particular expertise. So, you know, other than they're part of the core team in actually doing everything from assuring security to assuring that we have resilience in our backups in place. So I'm thinking your question is, what do they do? Or
No. Maybe I should have asked HR. Why do we have two unclassified managers in a staffing pattern like this? Just very briefly.
Okay, to my knowledge, and yes, Mr. Lujan's correct, there were a few positions, and I think it was authorized in the Budget Act to hire junior programmer analysts, senior programmer analysts, and these were authorized in the Budget Act to go ahead and hire, and it's utilized, I believe, in OTEC.
So these will remain as unclassified positions?
Correct. In the law, they're unclassified,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And finally, could I ask the question about GSA? I just want to know, there's been, just like the backlog that the agencies complain of at HR, the agencies also say they have backlog of requests for procurement at GSA. And so I would like to know from you if this budget is going to help us overcome that, or if, and I hope maybe the technology that Mr. Lujan referred to earlier would also address some of that. So if you could explain that.
Sure, Vice Speaker. A lot of times the departments, they complain about, again, the requests and stuff, but if you take a look, a majority of the time, it's actually the way they submit their specifications, and it's just going back and forth. And at the end of the day, we then ask that the directors get involved so that, again, it's the way they prepare their scope of the service or their item description that actually takes a lot of time, especially when it's over the $15,000 threshold, and it has to go on bid. And a lot of times with our technology right now, with the procurement enhancement, we return requisitions to the departments, and lo and behold, they don't check their systems daily, and it's sitting in their department waiting for action, and they say it's GSA, but when we take a look at the records, it's really within their departments. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes, I've asked the director to just maybe give us a summary of GSAs, if there really is a backlog or not. And I appreciate if there isn't one and it's just the agency. So I would like to know a little bit more. If I'm wondering if both of your divisions are able to utilize a process of, we have some agencies that have good HR personnel, I guess, and good procurement also. Some of them have been lucky like that, where they have their own in-house that maybe meet your standards. And if you could pull them in when we have these 1,000 applications for GFD or 1,000 applications for, certain situations where we can just as a government pull these officers together to help you process through any backlog that we might have, and just a temporary detail, hopefully. I don't know if you could figure out
We are
something.
currently doing that, Vice Speaker.
Okay,
We
that's-
actually, again, if the departments wants to speed up their process.
That's what they tell me.
Yes.
Yes.
We ask them to come and assist us, so when they're side by side,
Great.
we can better understand through the process what it is that they're trying
Yes.
to, acquire here. Because
Right.
sometimes when they just submit specifications, it's unclear, and we kill a lot of time having to go back and forth. But if they situate themselves with us at least for a week, and we go through this exercise, then it really is more effective. And it's been working, so we currently have departments coming down here assisting us.
All right,
on
that's what I've heard, that
Yes.
they if they want their things done faster, they will send their employees down
Yes.
there, and okay, so I'm hoping that all works out for, maybe you could check it out for the other agencies. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, I had a brief opportunity to serve in that capacity, Mr. Lohan, and, for what it's worth, I was mentioning to Senator Espaldon that how the government has managed to keep it together technology-wise over the decades is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. It's just an amazing, amazing quagmire. The system is broken. When you're talking about the network or things like data recovery or things like PC and software support, it truly is mind-boggling. I think it even warrants its own separate meeting with Senator Lee, who's the committee chair on planning. But I do want to make some points, and I have some follow-up questions. In looking over your budget, Frank, I just had to, Mr. Lohan, I went back online to check it out, and, we're just kicking this can down the road in terms of attempting to fill positions like Mr. Manabusan here to your right, data processing manager. That's such an archaic term, and I'm speaking to the choir, but it's important to reflect that in the record and to the listening public. I double-checked just to make sure that what I'm laying claim to is still valid. Key punch operator. I mean, give me a break. Teleprocessing network coordinator. I'm assuming we're talking about network administrator, or the good senator over there who's pretty adept with technology issues, was questioning, our government's ability to respond to things like cybersecurity and data integrity and so forth. So, yes, Mr. Lohan, I think it's appropriate that you do present your ideas, maybe in another forum, if the committee chairs, the appropriate chairs, would be willing to listen about this reorganization idea. And that leads me to another comment in terms of the spirit of the law that established OTEC is very similar to that of BSP. BSP being the Central Planning Authority, you being the Central Technology Authority. But even in the short stint, by the way, that I served in less than 90 days, and I'm eternally indebted to my speaker here for having either spared me the scrutiny of confirmation or having been confirmed to the position and having to endure that. But my point is, you can't, I haven't seen that office be able to strictly enforce whether it's the letter of the law or the spirit or both, in terms of being the senior authority on all things technology. I can go down the line, whether it's Guam Memorial doing a great job planning their initiatives, or another group, the Interoperable Communications Working Group, attempting to replace an emergency communication systems, but the CTO wasn't driving that, at least in my capacity at the time. Then I asserted myself. My point would be, a major revisitation and reconstruction of the law is necessary, whether you're born out of DOA for, with some real standing, or absorbed by BSP, or whatever. The current structure doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and I can acknowledge that. The second thing I'd like to touch on, Mr. Lohan, and this might bode well for this is definitely germane to the budget hearing, is this perspective of being a lot more entrepreneurial by way of technology. I'll give you a few points to follow up on. The use of public easements and the leasing of the people's property to utilities and or telecommunication providers represents a significant opportunity to generate revenue. I'm not as familiar as I once was with respect to the contract between the people as executed by the governor and one or all telecommunication carriers. And I know we charge a relatively nominal amount of monies for use of our public spaces. The other thing, Mr. Lohan, we talked about at one point was what my colleagues, your colleagues in the U.S. Virgin Islands are doing, and being the most connected hub in this part of the world, they no longer charge for a lease drop on the major lines that come through. They charge on throughput. So if we're the most connected, I would encourage you to consider bringing something to this body that may allow us to change the paradigm, that maybe we could charge if in fact all of the data that's going from California via Hawaii to Asia and back and forth, if we could charge by throughput, that might generate a significant opportunity for the people of Guam to realize some revenue. And my third one, which is really going to be a major part of my agenda this term, is looking a lot more closely at the opportunity to sell digital assets through a secured connection so that it can create an alternative revenue stream. I'll give you an example. When we created the Land mobile app, we already envisioned at the time when I was with the administration the opportunity to be able to order, for example, the title or the property map, an official document, via this mobile application, and that would do a lot of things for us. It would establish a new revenue-generating source, but just make data available so that you don't have to go to DOA or DLM at ITC and stand in line. In fact, you can transact over the web, right? So those are my closing points, and I'd like to sit down with you and Senator Morrison and anybody else who's interested on this potential reorganization opportunity, and then also revenue-generating opportunities for Office of Technology. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ariola, I just wanted to ask a question. It's related to really the health insurance division. Bottom line, Governor Guam spends about close to $100 million a year on our health insurance, and I was just wondering, how many personnel are involved in the RFP and the handling of the implementation of the contract provisions? Do you know within the DOA?
Good question, Senator. In the past, with regard to the negotiations team, I was always on the other side. I was representing the legislature. Now that I'm sitting, actually this current year, as the acting director, I'm handling the negotiations that started last week. We are smack in the middle today as we speak. At the time I came in, the budget ceiling had already been established. The budget was already submitted. But one thing we're going to certainly shoot for for next fiscal year, and I had mentioned this maybe 1 if not 2 years ago, is this is probably the largest government of Guam contract short of the fuel supply. We have 2 individuals that handle the contract in terms of working with the carriers and things of that nature. And one of my suggestions that I'm definitely going to push for and work towards is I see a contract management division at DOA, and I might be speaking out of line because it's something I haven't brought up. I did bring it up to the current director. I said we need to get this thing going for the next fiscal year. We need a contract management division within DOA to manage this contract. In terms of information that we receive from carriers, to customer service for all our members, all our employees that we cover, to making sure that provisions in the contract are in fact carried out in terms of provision of services, in terms of health care services that they've promised to provide within the contract. So it's just a huge contract, and we really don't have a contract manager, to put it bluntly. And we're going to certainly work toward that because you're right. I think this current year, government looks to spend maybe a little over, quite a bit over $70 million on this contract. It's the largest contract, and I just see a need for a division, if you will, to manage this contract.
And so I'm just going to assume...
Excuse me. I have to admit, though, that the information that we are receiving from the carriers in terms of claims data and utilization, it's coming in at a faster rate. It's coming in much more accurate. It's coming in the format that we want. Of course, we're still fine-tuning it, you know, and as every month goes forward and or every report comes in, you know, we're fine-tuning it and we're getting better at it, and so are they, and it's really helping the government. I can't speak to this current negotiation that's going on right now, but it's looking good.
But, you know, again, and I guess, you know, because and you stated it, aside from the fuel contract, it is the largest contract probably that Guam has on an annual basis. You know, and so the follow-up question, I think you can kind of answer it, but I'll ask it anyway. So going forward, you're looking at perhaps standing up a contract management division, as you mentioned, if possible.
Yeah, short of that, this fiscal year, I personally will stay right on top of it.
Right. But right now you only have 2 others,
right.
2 personnel aside from yourself.
Correct.
To basically manage and oversee that whole contract.
Correct.
And really understand it and implement it and making sure that you're on top of it.
Right.
And so the follow-up question, and I kind of probably know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there a need for more personnel in this section that handles the insurance?
As I mentioned, we do need a contract manager, that someone within the field that knows that. That's going to be a highly specialized position, and we're going to definitely have to work with HR again to establish the job duties and responsibilities to hopefully create that, if not a division, then certainly an aspect of HR, payroll and benefits.
And Senator, if I could add, because the benefits branch does fall under the HR division, and so we do have a supervisor basically down there handling it, which plays the role of what the acting director's talking about, contract manager. You know, she has institutional knowledge. She works well with the carriers themselves. She's basically the link between GovGuam and the carriers. She has 1 staff, and we were able to actually negotiate with our current life insurance provider to assist us by providing a staff as well. And so basically the way it works is she discusses with myself and the director, deputy director, on all issues dealing with the contract. So once the negotiations are completed and things are in place, we move forward administering it. And for the amount of what it does and the specialty involved, yeah, definitely staff is, you know, a key portion for what they do down there. But to speak to their expertise, yes, the contract manager is basically what they're doing down there right now. and it is 2 permanent GovCom staff that we're looking at.
Well, then can I add, in this specific person who has that responsibility, or at least who's in charge of it, the title supervisor, I don't know, what is it? What is it?
It's a personnel specialist 4, the supervisory
Okay.
level personnel specialist.
And I guess the first question that comes to my mind is, how far away is she from retirement?
She's still pretty good.
Okay.
We're not in any trouble anytime
And again,
soon.
I just
She's-
don't want to have, you have
I-
2 people in your office who
I ask
actually
that
handle
question
this.
every day, when they come up and, they're venting to me about the issues surrounding the contract. I'm like, you're still here, right? And I check how many years they have left. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and because it would be a concern.
It is.
For if something happens to that person, or even her assistant, or his or her
Right.
assistant, then now we only have one person overseeing and really being in charge of a 70 to 80 to 90 million dollar contract.
and I'm glad you brought it up because we are, currently we are going through succession planning to ensure that all the other branches as well, those, for testing, recruitment, our records and all that we're backed up. And that's why for the most part this year we've tried to work on bringing the lower level staff up to the levels that they can handle the more complex issues, including her division. Her branch actually, her specialist just got promoted recently, so he's taking on a bigger role in the branch so he can see the bigger picture.
And I
everything.
appreciate what you just said, because that's always in the back of my mind, the succession plan. What happens next when somebody else who fills that critical position, moves on or retires, or, has another opportunity, who steps in and when and where, and what are the qualifications. So I appreciate that answer. And in total, I guess, like I said, I worry about this aspect because it is a very large contract, and if there's only 2 people technically overseeing this whole process, the RFP as well as the implementation of that contract, then perhaps, like I said, I think I know the answer to the question that I asked, that do you need more personnel to handle this? And I'm encouraged by Mr. Ariela's answer, at least perspective, of perhaps standing up a division itself to handle contracts.
And we do have daily conversations after meeting with the negotiation team, and we kind of have an understanding of which gaps need to be filled, in the branch, and where the help is actually needed. The 2 of them right now have been doing these negotiations for well over 5 years, so herself well over 25 years. So the institutional knowledge in there of the process and how it goes. Our yearly meetings of, okay, let's spit out the timeline. It's all there. So the lower level staff at any point in time, I think, is ready to handle the larger issues. And I think it would be more so of filling in the gaps under that is what we're probably looking at.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you want to add something?
You mentioned something at the beginning of the hearing that you wanted to ask us, residential treatment? Something?
Well, yeah, I'll get to that. But as long as Senator Espartero gave me the segue, I noticed that in the director's office, you're asking for an increase in the actuarial contract. What is that for?
This year, and we anticipate next year as well, we're going to be asking them to do a lot more work. I can't go into details about what's going on now, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, but we're asking...
Okay, I don't want you to violate your...
Right.
But
We're
would contracting out some of the services that Senator Espaldon is asking be the way to do this, if,
That's certainly a
or
possibility.
at least temporarily until such time as we get somebody up to it?
That's certainly a possibility that we can look at and we can discuss while they're still on island. But the workload and the deliverables that we're expecting from them are increasing as on a daily and monthly basis. So we're using them quite a bit.
And I've noticed that since 2013, the government has seen health insurance premiums incrementally increase in cost for the government, while the cost for the employees and retirees and active employees have actually gone down. Does DOA have any intention of modifying the government's contribution to be consistent with the trend in premium cost?
I can't answer that question, Mr. Speaker, simply because we are in the middle of negotiations, and I wouldn't want to tip our position to any of the carriers.
Okay. The Department of Administration is the agency that conducts the allocation on how much the premium costs active and retirees versus what the government pays. What is the DOA's process in determining how much the government pays versus how much the retirees pay? That's not current, but I mean for this last year, for the last 3 years.
I know we did it last year. I wasn't involved in last year, but also, Mr. Speaker, the fact that we're in the middle of negotiations, if I were to give any inkling of how we did the spread, it might have, it certainly will have an impact on the rates that we are right smack in the middle of, Mr. Speaker.
But can I ask, will I have the completed negotiations by August the 1st when I put my budget
Oh, absolutely,
together?
absolutely.
Okay, and I don't think this involves current negotiations. Was there a participating contract rebate paid this year by the insurance companies?
Not that
What used to be MLR?
Right. I believe there was one last year. I'm not aware of one this year. So I'd have to look into that, and I can get back to you on that, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we didn't get, as the two of us know it, is medical loss ratio or participating contract rebate, maybe Goody knows how much we received. Was there any negotiations with the carriers to receive benefits other than paying the participating contract provision?
I can't speak to that again, Speaker, because that's part of our negotiations this year.
Because I know that in the previous contracts, the participating contract provision said something to the effect that if there was going to be a rebate, that it could either be utilized to reduce the premium for the coming year, offset the coming year, or whatever. Do you know if it was?
That I'll have to get back to you on that, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I believe this is one of our favorite questions. Is there a way that OTAC or someone here can provide us our read access only to the daily account? A read-only access to the bank account? I asked Christine at a previous hearing, and I'm just wondering whether or not OTEC can provide a way that, with all the protections that you put in with the B or G or whatever the things is, can we get access to?
Oh, read access to the bank, the government bank accounts.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. That might be an executive branch privilege only. And I know that may have come up earlier at one of the hearings. I know our director talked about that. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
And the cash balance reports require DOA to submit the bank balances of all accounts, including bond reserve and bond-related accounts. DOA used to provide those bond-related account balances, but has since stopped for the last couple of years. The law requires that bond-related account balances also be provided on a monthly basis. Why has DOA stopped providing those bond-related balances, and will DOA start to provide those again?
Bond balances? I know we provide bank balances on a monthly basis. I just signed off on one, I'm not sure, it might have been this morning.
But the
For the
bonds,
monthly.
for the bonds, on how we're doing with the bonds and the bond payments.
Balance is due?
Yeah, they used to provide it, but has since stopped. It's bond-related bank balances.
Okay. I'll get on that.
Okay. I believe you had an additional question, and then I'll ask my last question on that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Ariola, in previous budget hearings, one for the higher education institutions, they mentioned a reserve that's not being equitably applied across all of the government. So I wanted to ask you, how is the reserve applied across the government of Guam, and are higher education institutions being allotted all of their reserves?
Is this reserves for cash or reserves for budget allotments?
Well, it's my understanding that I think both UOG and GCC have, they've said that they worked very well with Director Boleto, and that they've created a schedule for the release of the allotments through the remainder of this fiscal year. So I just wanted to get some assurance from you that this kind of reserve isn't just being, I'm just confused about why our higher education institutions are kind of being holding the bag with nothing in it.
I know that was an agreement with the director and the heads of those two institutions. I know on a weekly basis, if not bi-weekly, our remittances to those agencies we've caught up. We are up to date with them based on our discussions with them. So that's basically where we stand.
Okay.
We are.
With regard to the child care fund, can you confirm that the Child Support Trust Fund has been reimbursed? It's my understanding that it's law now, so really my question is about ongoing compliance and if there are any impacts to you for compliance with that law.
The Child Support Fund, we see that every day. And that's one fund that's it's surprising. There's $6 million in that fund, and I certainly we're not touching that fund, but it's just mind-boggling why folks aren't picking up their checks. Custodial parents, or whatever the case may be, but there's $6 million waiting to be given. That's cash to be given to these custodial parents or individuals or children who are waiting for child support payments. I don't know what else to do. We certainly can't, because of confidentiality issues, can't publish a list of who's waiting. But actually, and that actually is being handled by the Attorney General.
Right.
But the fund it's whole. It's sitting there. The funds are sitting there.
Okay, well, thank you. That certainly answers my question. And I do want to thank everybody that's here. Thank you for participating in this hearing. I know that the director is off island, but it's been the feedback that we get from all the agencies who come before us during these budget hearings that, they feel that they have a good relationship and communication with DOA, and they understand some of the cash management situations that are going on, but they do feel that they are being responded to in a timely manner, and I certainly appreciate that. I know they do as well. And it was my experience in previous roles working with the late Senator Tony, who was previously in that position, and he was always super responsive to any of our issues, and so I certainly appreciate that. I've been on that kind of receiving end of things, so I really appreciate, just on behalf of all of the GovGuam employees and the agencies that you all help to do work for, I really appreciate that. So I want to ask you to keep up the good work, but also, if you could, a lot of the questions that the speaker was asking about transparency, it'll help us a great deal to be able to look at those numbers and to make sure that we're doing everything we can in this branch to kind of help move things along. So, Sijus Masi.
We understand very well. Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very quick. Just a very pointed question for the HR. You received 1,200 applicants for GFD, yes? So how far are you in processing these applications?
Well, a bulk of the applications have already been processed. We're looking now at just scheduling the first of 2 tests. We're going to schedule the written test. We're anticipating within...
Are these all paper applications? Paper?
Yes.
Do you guys look at opportunities to do automated applications?
Yes, we've actually had a discussion with OTEC and our vendor of our current system. And I
Okay.
think it's building the capabilities of allowing people to get it into our actual system, and then from there we can take it. So
Yes, because it has the filtering processes, and you don't have to go through each and every.
Yeah.
The system does, the automation does it for you, and you won't have to hire so many people. You'll save a lot of money that way.
Right, and yes, we have
So-
had previous discussions. Our current system, we're still building its capabilities as we speak, so we're enhancing it as we go along throughout the process. But yes, they're all paper applications, and
And when will you implement this new software?
at this stage, we're still trying to get it to be solid in the functions it's performing now before it goes online. But we do actually have an email where they...
That doesn't help you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to, help you out, Shane, because I know these guys have been, the FGFD has been asking and asking and asking, and 1,200 applicants is a lot, especially for your small staff.
Right.
So if you can work to getting a lot of your processes more automated, you won't have to have such a large staff, and we can use that money somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to, interesting enough, right after, I guess there's some people watching, and I just got a message. One of the areas also, we were talking about contract management earlier, and perhaps, the staffing requirements there and the continuity, the succession plan and whatnot. And one of the observations that was just sent to me now is also in the accounting division that there might be, perhaps it might be a little too heavy, maybe even in all the divisions within DOA. I don't know that for fact, right? But there seems to be a concern also there as to whether or not from the top in the director's office that you are looking into perhaps a restructuring of some kind in light of that there probably will be some retirement coming in and the need to replace a lot of those positions and, creating some entry level at this point. Is that being discussed right now amongst you? And I know the task that DOA has is enormous, and so some of these issues might fall by the wayside, but it's still an important issue in terms of structuring properly and recruiting properly so that there is that continuity in DOA because of the importance of the agency.
Yeah, I personally have quite a number of conversations with the director in planning for that for succession, not just within DOA, but definitely within the other line agencies. So, one of the things we thought of is perhaps a seminar that will engage all the line agencies to plan for that, because I haven't seen anything on paper or on the table that actually plans for something like that.
Well, it's probably something to consider, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you're very well aware of that and the need for something like that. But I just need to make comment because there are people who are watching this proceeding and have their own concerns. I wanted to voice it on their behalf.
Point well taken.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I know I said I was just going to, we also received testimony from Laddie Treatment Center. Yeah, the Laddie Treatment Center that gets paid out of the residential
Treatment fund?
Yeah, and as I understand it, they're behind, or at least you're behind in paying them about $77,000, and they figure that by the end of the year, it could conceivably be above 150. In the residential treatment fund, you've not increased the amount and been then depending on transferring from other agencies, I noticed that there was a problem a couple of weeks ago when
Yeah. What-
behavior wellness was made to transfer some money in.
Right. What transpired there, Mr. Speaker, was at the beginning of the fiscal year, they transferred, I believe it was about 500,000, and that I believe only took them up to February of this year. As you know, Laddie Treatment has a contract with Guam Wellness and Behavior. What happened is we didn't get a request to certify additional funds until June. So we had the invoices. We were telling, we were in communications with Guam Behavior and Wellness that we've got some invoices. We can't certify the funds until they make a certification of additional funds through BVMR so that we can load the funds in. That didn't take place until, let's see, I believe it was signed off by the director there June 9th. It was on my desk June 13th, went out, BVMR signed it, I think within the next day or two, and we cut a check, I believe, yesterday. But it wasn't a matter of lack of cash or us not cutting a checks. We didn't have the authority to do the payments. So the contract was between Laddie and Guam Behavioral. In my view, it was Guam Behavioral's duty to start the process for asking for additional funds. That's where we stand. And they didn't. It wasn't done until June, and we did that within I believe 10 days to 2 weeks. But that really should have been started back in March.
And there's also the residential treatment cost, the off-island cost. Good, you know that part. We've never, at least for the last 4 years, we've not had sufficient money in that account, or at least you're not asking for any increase in the residential treatment fund. How much did you have to pay out finally last year for residential treatment?
Do you have that? Yeah.
Okay, why don't you get back to us on that? Otherwise, thank you very much, and please.
We have our marching orders. We understand very much, Speaker.
You know, I mean, with the millions that we lost in overtime, the millions that are lost because we don't bring them into the 21st century, it just keeps
Understand.
It's circular, and it's just,
You'll see some results.
please.
We'll commit to that.
Thank you. This budget hearing is now recessed until
Thank you very much.
tomorrow at 2 when we meet with BBMR.